Hey everybody, it's Jess, your SCI 100 peer tutor. We're here at the 3/4 or 75% mark of the class. We're almost done. That's hard to believe. This week's going to be another short yet sweet workshop because we already went over why we ask why a few weeks ago, but I'll go over it briefly again for your assignment this week. And then we'll briefly go over the rubric for your presentation. Next week I will have an example and we will really dive into it. But I figure this week we can have another little, let our minds rest a little bit. All right, so here are 4 different reasons of the millions of why scientists ask why, or why does this happen, or what will happen if I do this, or when did this happen, or how did this happen. But we love why. We want to know why. And a lot of that is natural curiosity. We're just curious. We're curious people. That's what drives most scientists. And skepticism. Many of you know that scientists are born skeptics, and they have to see it to believe it. They have to understand everything about it before they can truly accept something as being real. And I will use the paranormal as an example here. Many of us watch, the paranormal shows or have had, either we believe or you don't. And a lot of mainstream scientists don't believe in it because they haven't seen it. Doesn't mean it's not real, but that's just usually how it goes, right? But if we look at it like this, where would we be if Copernicus or Galileo wouldn't have come along and challenged the status quo? We'd still think the Earth was the center of the universe, right? Or the Earth was flat, or any of that. And the third reason is hypothesis formation. We need more information to form a hypothesis, a possible explanation for an observation. Only by asking questions can we obtain as much information to better understand the observations, to then come up with a reasonable and strong hypothesis. And to learn, it's the simplest one, but I think it's the biggest one. We don't know everything, and most times an observation may require more than one expertise, or more than one sect, if you will, of natural scientists. Like you look at all the combinations, remember that we talked about in week 1 or 2, astrophysics and microbiology and all of that stuff. So there's all these combinations, and a lot of that came from, scientists wanting to learn more, or they were studying something and just decided to combine. But we ask a lot of questions from other experts to help us in our own work. So here is the rubric for your why ask why question, and it's discussing what drives Stephen Hawking to ask why. How did his research contribute to the field of natural science? And then explain how developments in scientific thinking end up influencing how scientific study is carried out. You have everything you need for this in your reading this week. And, as I always say, there's no real wrong answers as long as you explain what you say and use your sources. Use your course readings from this week and previous weeks if you feel it's necessary, and you got it. All right, so project 3. This is going to be a PowerPoint presentation. We'll really get into this next week because there's a few of the critical elements that we're going to talk further and deeper next week. So in particular, the last 1 or 2. So basically what we're doing with this is we are investigating major developments in the natural sciences for informing critical questions that drive scientific inquiry. Jess, you can't talk ever, can you? Articulate the value of natural sciences for their impact on contemporary issues. And that's what we're really going to get into next week. If any of you have taken like History 100 or Humanities 100, remember for your final multimedia presentation when we talked about the value of history or the value of the humanities, we're doing that again, except for this time it's with the natural sciences. So that's always in week 7. That's just the way it kind of rolls out. So next week we will really get into that. So, and basically what you're doing with this is you're taking the question that you posed in Project 2, and then you're going to explain why that answer is important for understanding yourself, other people, the world around you. And we're also going to talk about how science, the natural sciences in particular, have helped us answer these important questions. You must have speaker notes, which we'll get into next week, but many of you are probably familiar with that. But we'll really get into it next week. There's lots of wonderful YouTube videos on doing PowerPoint if you need help. There's also some within the rubric, which you will see in just a moment. But speaker notes is basically you're just going to write what you would say if you were presenting your presentation in front of people. So it's basically like what I'm doing now. If I actually wrote a script, which would probably be a good idea sometimes, right? No, I tried that. It doesn't work out very well. I'm a horrible public speaker, and when I have a script, it becomes even worse. But you're lucky. You don't have to speak in front of people, but, you have to kind of pretend, and you don't want to spend more than like 2.5 minutes per slide. So you can time yourself. You can record yourself speaking on each of the slides through PowerPoint. And so you can time yourself and make sure that it's a-okay. But let's get to the critical elements. Number 1, why is the question you identified important to you as a member of society? I think that's pretty straightforward. Once again, no real wrong answer. Just explain why do you feel like this is important. Number 2, explain how finding the answer to your question might impact others around you. An example could be, who might be most interested in the answer to your question? This is a wonderful question because, for instance, if you're dealing with a illness, I know there's a few people dealing with cancer. You can explain how cancer patients or survivors or even future cancer patients may benefit from the answers that you have found. You can be specific and say, my mother had breast cancer. This may, help her in the future, or women that are finding out they have breast cancer now. So once again, just be honest, use your sources and explain yourself. Okay, 3 is explain why studying the natural sciences is valuable. All right, we're going to get into this big time next week. So if you start working on this one, you can leave that one for last because it's not really all that. You don't have to have that much information, but we're going to get into that next week. And then finally, describe the major developments in the natural sciences related to your topic. And use your course resources to back up your discussion. Now remember, this is what we talked about last week, so you can talk about the big things that happened in regards to the topic that you've chosen. Remember, this was your discussion last week, so yeah. And then 5 is the detail, the major developments in scientific thinking. So you'll just give a little more detail about all of the big, so you can name them on one slide and then the next slide really get into them. And then 6, how do these developments in the natural sciences and scientific thinking inform questions about the topic in your news story? What this means is, what is the relationship between major developments in the natural sciences and the questions that natural scientists are interested in? It sounds like a riddle, doesn't it? Basically what they're asking is, does the big developments, the big breakthroughs in natural sciences, does that have a lot to do with the questions that the scientists are interested in? Which kind of brings us to Why Ask Why. So a lot of your reading this week will help you there. And then finally, discuss the obligation that you have as a citizen to understand science behind the issues that impact you every day. For instance, how can being a more scientifically informed member of society benefit you and your community? This is much like history and humanities 100, questions, the exact same thing. No wrong answer. Use your sources to back your argument up, which we'll go into that next week. Some possible reasons for and against. Where it says review this document in blue, that is really helpful. So take a look at that. and that will bring up this. So there's a couple tutorials which are really helpful. If you're going to use Prezi, which is amazing, by the way, I'm just scared to use it. It looks really cool, though. So if somebody does use it, let me know. I want to see it. So check it out. And, pick either PowerPoint or Prezi, whatever you're most comfortable with. You don't have to do Prezi just because everyone else is. If you're more comfortable with PowerPoint, by all means, use PowerPoint. All right, so this is your schedule. Last week's is included in there still, but this is basically what we're going to be doing for the next 2.5 weeks. So we're going to think about the developments in scientific thinking impacting the way science is carried out, reflect upon how developments in the sciences influence the types of questions that we ask. Then next week, we're going to get into questioning the importance of your selected topic and research question to you and the world. And also consider the benefits of understanding the science behind the issues that we see in the news, and consider how it might impact those around us. And then we're going to talk about ethical concerns of your selected topic. And finally, we're going to consider the importance of being an informed citizen. And that's that. And then we will be done, right? Exciting. I'm so proud of everybody. Everybody's done wonderful all this term. And I'm proud of each and every one of you. And next week, we'll also have an example. The person got a perfect score on it. A few of you may have seen it if you've had a one-on-one session with me. So it will be the same one. I'm trying to secure another one by then as well. So hopefully I will have two, just so you can see two different examples. But it will totally calm your nerves. So if you're kind of freaking out right now, don't worry. It's going to be fine. And I look forward to next week, and I will see you then.